The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, their petals swirling around me like a cascade of pink snowflakes as I sat on the park bench where it all began. It was here, beneath these very trees, that I had first met him. I remember the sunlight filtering through the branches, casting dappled shadows on his face, a face that had become as familiar to me as my own. For 5 years, I had built my world around him, each day a brick in the castle of our shared dreams. Yet now, those dreams felt like they were crumbling around me, each petal that landed on my lap a reminder of what could never be. I clutched the letter in my hand, its edges crumpled from my grip. His words, scrawled hastily, were etched into my mind with the clarity of a knife's edge. "I'm sorry," it began, and ended with a promise he had made to someone else, someone from his past who had once again become his future. As I sat there, the park alive with the laughter of children and the distant chatter of couples, I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching my life play out from a distance, a spectator to my own heartbreak. But even as the sadness threatened to consume me, there was a flicker of something else, a small, stubborn flame that refused to be extinguished. It was the part of me that had always believed in the possibility of a new beginning, the same part that had carried me through the darkest nights during those 5 years. I realized, with startling clarity, that I had given so much to him that I had forgotten how to give to myself. And perhaps now was the time to start. The days that followed were a blur of mundane routines and unexpected moments of clarity. I found solace in the small things, a steaming cup of tea, the comforting weight of my favorite book, the way the morning sun painted my room in shades of gold. I began to rediscover parts of myself I had long neglected, like the forgotten brushstrokes of a painting hidden beneath layers of dust. It was during one of these quiet mornings that I met Akira. He was an artist, his fingers perpetually stained with paint, his eyes alight with a mischievous spark that seemed to see right through to the heart of things. We had been neighbors for years, exchanging polite nods and the occasional small talk, but it was only now that I truly saw him. Perhaps it was the way he listened, his attention unwavering and genuine, or the way he spoke of his art, each word imbued with passion and purpose. He invited me to his studio one evening, a cluttered sanctuary filled with canvases and the scent of turpentine. As he showed me his latest work, a vibrant landscape that seemed to pulse with life, I felt a connection, an understanding that transcended words. "Art is about capturing moments," he said, his voice soft yet resonant. "It's about finding beauty in imperfection, in the stories that unfold every day." His words lingered with me long after I left the studio, echoing in the quiet corners of my mind. I realized that my own story was far from over, that the pages were still being written, and I held the pen. The realization was both daunting and exhilarating, a challenge and an invitation to embrace the unknown. As I walked home under the canopy of stars, the air cool against my skin, I felt a sense of liberation, as if the weight of the past was finally lifting. The path ahead was uncertain, dotted with shadows and light, but it was mine to navigate. And for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to the journey, to the stories yet to be told, and the unexpected twists that awaited me. In the days that followed, I found myself drawn back to the studio, where Akira and I would spend hours lost in conversation, our laughter mingling with the music he always had playing softly in the background. Our friendship grew with each shared moment, a tapestry of light and warmth that wrapped around my heart, mending the fractures that had once seemed beyond repair. Through Akira, I began to see the world anew, each day a canvas of possibilities waiting to be explored. And in turn, I started to paint my own story, one brushstroke at a time, embracing the imperfections and the beauty that lay within them. As the autumn sun began its descent, casting a golden hue over the city, I found myself walking aimlessly through the bustling streets. The world felt foreign, a tapestry woven with threads of memories too painful to touch. His voice still echoed in my mind, haunting like a melancholic melody from a song I once loved. 5 years of my life had been intertwined with his, a delicate dance of dreams and whispered promises. And now, with a single decision, he had unraveled it all. People brushed past me, their faces blurred into a sea of anonymity as I meandered through the crowd. I clutched the small box in my pocket, the one that held the ring I had found last night. It was meant for her. The realization hit me again like a wave crashing against the shore, relentless and unyielding. It was as though the universe had conspired to reveal this truth, the one I had been blind to see. I turned into a quiet alley, the noise of the city fading into a distant hum. My mind was a labyrinth of questions, each more treacherous than the last. How could I have been so naive? So trusting? A bitter laugh escaped my lips as I leaned against a cold brick wall. It seemed almost poetic, this betrayal, a test of the heart I had failed to anticipate. My phone vibrated, a gentle reminder of the world that continued to spin despite my heart's turmoil. It was a message from Ayumi, my closest friend and confidant, her words a beacon of warmth in this storm of uncertainty. "Let's meet," she wrote simply, knowing that sometimes the simplest gestures held the most power. I found Ayumi at our usual spot, a cozy cafe tucked away from prying eyes. She sat by the window, her gaze distant yet comforting. Her presence was a balm to my wounded soul, a reminder that not all connections were destined for heartbreak. "Hey," she greeted softly as I slid into the seat across from her. Her eyes, filled with a depth of understanding, met mine, and I felt the dam within me begin to crack. "Hey," I replied, my voice a fragile whisper. The cafe was a sanctuary of warmth, the air filled with the rich aroma of roasted coffee and freshly baked pastries. Outside, the world continued its relentless pace, but here, time seemed to slow, cradled by the gentle hum of quiet conversations and the clinking of porcelain cups. I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out in a torrent. "He proposed to her," I confessed, my hands trembling as I laid the ring box on the table between us. Ayumi's eyes widened with a mixture of disbelief and sympathy, her hand reaching across the table to cover mine. "Oh, Rin," she sighed, her voice a soft melody of compassion. "I'm so sorry." I nodded, the ache in my chest a constant reminder of the love I had given so freely, now cast aside. "I sacrificed so much for him, Ayumi. 5 years. And for what?" Ayumi squeezed my hand, her presence a steady anchor in this sea of confusion. "For you," she said gently. "You gave everything for the person you thought he was. But that doesn't mean you have to lose yourself." Her words resonated within me, a spark of truth amidst the shadows. I realized then that this was a crossroads, a moment where I could choose to let this betrayal define me or to rise above it, to find strength in my own worth. As we sat there, the world outside slowly darkened, the glow from the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. Ayumi and I spoke of dreams yet to be realized, of paths not yet taken. And as the evening wore on, I felt a flicker of hope, fragile yet persistent, igniting within me. Perhaps this was not an end, but a beginning. A chance to rediscover who I was beyond the confines of a love that had become a cage. I could feel the stirrings of something new, a seed of resilience taking root amidst the ruins of my heart. With Ayumi by my side, I knew I would find a way to rebuild, to embrace the uncertainty of tomorrow with courage and grace. And though the path ahead was shrouded in mist, I felt a quiet resolve to walk it, step by step towards a horizon yet unseen. The rain fell in sheets against the window, each drop a tiny percussion against the glass, like the muted beats of my heart. The room felt oversized around me, as though its corners were retreating into shadows, leaving me adrift in an ocean of my own making. It wasn't just the weather painting my world gray. No, it was the memory of that afternoon. The day when everything I had carefully built began to unravel with a few simple words. "I never meant to hurt you," he had said, his eyes averted as if the very sight of me would sear his conscience. "But I've realized something." Those words echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain that refused to be silenced. I had given him 5 years of my life, every corner of my heart, every spare moment, every ounce of energy. Together, we had woven dreams from the threads of our shared experiences, dreams that now lay frayed and abandoned at my feet. Yet, it wasn't just the end of us that haunted me. It was the beginning of something else. The knowledge that he had proposed to her, the ex who had once been a ghost in our lives, now became a specter far more real and threatening. I remember the night I first met him, a serendipitous encounter at a dimly lit cafe filled with the scent of freshly ground coffee and the muffled hum of conversations. He had been a stranger with a disarming smile, and I, a wanderer seeking solace in the anonymity of the night. Our connection had been instantaneous, electric, and in those early days, every moment felt like a promise of forever. But forever, it seemed, was a fragile concept, easily shattered by the weight of unresolved pasts and unspoken desires. As I sat on the edge of my bed, the world outside my window a blur of raindrops and streetlights, I tried to make sense of the emotions swirling inside me. Betrayal, anger, sadness. They all jostled for supremacy, each one a tempest in its own right. I needed to get out of this room, out of this suffocating silence. Grabbing my coat, I stepped into the storm. The rain was cold, a sharp contrast to the turmoil inside, but it was a welcome jolt of reality. The city was alive, its streets glistening under the streetlights, each puddle reflecting the chaotic dance of the raindrops. My feet carried me to the park where we had shared so many moments. Memories flitted through my mind like ghosts, laughter under the cherry blossoms, whispered secrets under the stars. Each memory was a bittersweet reminder of what had been and what could no longer be. In that moment, I realized something profound. I had lost myself in him. My identity had become so intertwined with his that I had forgotten who I was outside our relationship. The realization was both terrifying and liberating, a door to a new path that I had never considered. The path back home was quiet, the rain easing into a gentle drizzle. As I stepped inside my apartment, I knew that I was at a crossroads, a turning point in my life. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to make. I reached for my journal, its pages a chronicle of my innermost thoughts and dreams. As I began to write, the words flowed with an ease I hadn't felt in years. They were my own, untainted by anyone else's expectations or desires. It was time to find out who I was beyond the shadows of the past, to embrace the uncertainty and let it guide me to a future I could claim as my own. And perhaps, along the way, I would rediscover the parts of myself I had forgotten, the dreams I had set aside, and the strength I never knew I possessed. With a newfound resolve, I closed my journal and looked out the window. The storm had passed, and the first hints of dawn were breaking through the clouds, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. It was a new day, a new beginning, and as I watched the world awaken, I felt a spark of hope flicker within me, a tiny ember that promised warmth in the days to come. The crisp autumn air embraced me as I walked down the familiar streets, each step crunching upon a tapestry of fallen leaves. The world was aglow with a palette of amber and gold, yet inside, I felt like a hollow husk, my heart a barren echo chamber. 5 years. It seemed both a blink and an eternity. 5 years of shared dreams, whispered promises, and the kind of laughter that made the stars tremble with envy. I had given him my all, weaving my life around his, but now, those threads felt like shackles. It was just a week ago that I found out. The news hit like a tidal wave, drowning me in disbelief. I stumbled upon the engagement announcement on social media, a sparkling diamond on her finger, the caption, "Forever starts now." Her, his ex, the one who had left him shattered and whom I had helped him piece back together from. I could still hear his voice, achingly sincere. She was my past, but you're my future. Words now reduced to dust, scattered by the winds of change. The cafe where we first met loomed ahead, a small haven amid the bustling city. It was there that I had first seen his smile, radiant and warm, like sunlight breaking through a storm. I hesitated at the door, uncertainty gnawing at my resolve. I needed closure, an explanation, something to fill the void that gnawed at my soul. As I entered, The familiar aroma of roasted coffee beans mingled with echoes of laughter and clinking cups. I spotted him immediately, sitting at our usual table, his face a tapestry of emotions I could no longer read. He looked up as I approached, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of remorse and something else. Was it relief? "Hey," he said softly, gesturing to the seat opposite him. I sat down, the chair cold and unwelcoming. Silence stretched between us, heavy and oppressive, like the moments before a thunderstorm. "Why?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. It was a single word, yet it carried the weight of all my unasked questions, all my unvoiced fears. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, nervous habit I had come to cherish. "I didn't plan for this," he began, his tone laced with regret. "She came back into my life and it was like no time had passed. Everything just fell into place." "Including me?" I interjected, my voice sharper than I intended. His flinch was barely perceptible, but it was there, a crack in his carefully maintained composure. "No," he said, shaking his head. "You were never just a placeholder. You helped me see what love could be, what it should be. But when she returned, it was like I was seeing her with new eyes. I realized I still loved her, and she was willing to give us another chance." I felt a sting of betrayal, a cold, creeping sensation spreading through my veins. And what about us? Were we just practice? He reached across the table, his hand hovering above mine, uncertain. "You were my anchor, my guiding star. You taught me how to love again. I'm sorry it wasn't enough." I pulled my hand back, the gesture final and resolute. I deserve more than apologies, more than being someone's second choice. He nodded, his expression one of acceptance, yet there was a flicker of something else. Admiration, perhaps. "You do. You deserve the world, and I was too blind to see that." As I stood up to leave, a sense of clarity washed over me. The past 5 years had not been wasted. They had been a journey, a tapestry of moments that had shaped me into who I was today. Stronger, wiser, ready to step into a future of my own making. Outside, the world continued its symphony of life, the crisp air invigorating my senses. I walked away from the cafe, each step lighter than the last. The leaves rustled in the breeze, whispering secrets of renewal. The chapter with him was closing, but my story was far from over. With each breath, I felt the promise of new beginnings, unshackled and free, ready to embrace whatever the next page held. I stood in the pouring rain, feeling the drops merge with the tears on my cheeks, blurring the lines between sky and sorrow. The city lights shimmered through the wet haze, casting a kaleidoscope of sadness over my heart. I had given 5 years of my life to him, 5 years of laughter, whispered dreams, and shared silences. And now, like a cruel echo, his words reverberated in my mind. "I'm proposing to her." The world seemed to spin around me, a carousel of memories that only I was writing. Each scene was a vivid painting. Our first meeting at the university library, where his shy smile made the fluorescent lights seem almost romantic. The late nights spent studying, punctuated by shared cups of instant ramen and dreams of the future. The gentle way he would tuck a stray strand of hair behind my ear, as if sealing a promise meant to last forever. How did it all unravel? How did I find myself here, drenched and alone, on the very night he chose to entwine his future with hers? His ex, who had reappeared as if conjured by some twisted magic, pulling him back into a past I thought he had long closed the door on. I walked, each step a battle against the storm, raging both outside and within. The streets were a blur of neon signs and shadowy figures, none of them aware of the maelstrom in my chest. I found myself at the old bridge, the place where we had often come to escape the world. I leaned against the railing, the cold metal grounding me in reality. I closed my eyes, seeking solace in the memories that now felt like thorns. His laughter, a melody that once filled my days with joy, now felt like a haunting refrain. I opened my eyes to the river below, its surface rippling with the same turmoil coursing through me. Suddenly, a voice broke through the storm. "Kira?" I turned to see Emmy, my best friend, her umbrella a bright beacon in the gray. Her concern was palpable, her presence a lifeline in the churning sea of my despair. She took my hand, her warmth seeping into my frozen fingers. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the rain. It was a confession of guilt for dragging her into my tempest, for burdening her with my heartache. "Don't apologize," she replied, her voice firm yet gentle. "You don't have to carry this alone." Her words were like a balm, soothing the raw edges of my grief. Together, we walked to a nearby cafe, its inviting glow a refuge from the storm. The aroma of coffee enveloped us as we settled into a corner booth. Emmy ordered our usual, 2 steaming mugs of cocoa, topped with a swirl of whipped cream. It was our ritual, a small comfort in an unpredictable world. As the warmth seeped into my bones, Emmy listened to my jumbled words, her presence a steady anchor. With every sentence, I felt a weight lift, the burden of silence replaced by the healing power of shared sorrow. "Do you regret it?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "The years you spent with him?" I hesitated, the question echoing in the quiet space between us. Did I regret it? The love, the laughter, the dreams we wove together? Despite the pain, the answer was clearer than I expected. "No," I said finally, my voice steady. "I don't regret loving him. I regret losing myself in the process." Emmy nodded, her understanding a gentle embrace. "Then maybe it's time to find yourself." "Again," she suggested, her words a flicker of light in the darkness. Her suggestion lingered in the air, a seed of hope in the barren landscape of my heart. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new journey, one where I could rediscover the person I had lost along the way. A journey of healing, of growth, of learning to love myself once more. As we left the cafe, the rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, whispering promises of renewal. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of strength within me. Emmy squeezed my hand, her smile a testament to the bond we shared. With her by my side, I knew I wasn't alone. Together, we stepped into the night, the rain washing away the remnants of the past, leaving only the promise of a new dawn. The autumn leaves whispered secrets only the wind could decode as I walked down the familiar cobblestone path leading to my favorite bench in the park. The sun, a dying ember in the sky, painted the world in shades of amber and scarlet. It was here that I often found solace, amidst nature's quiet symphony. My heart, however, was anything but quiet. 5 years. 5 years of laughter, tears, late-night conversations that bled into dawn, and dreams woven together like an intricate tapestry. I had given him everything, my love, my time, my unwavering support. And yet, here I was, alone. His words echoed in my mind, haunting me like a relentless ghost. "I've proposed to her," he had said, his eyes avoiding mine, as if my gaze would burn his very soul. How could a moment so monumental, so defining, be reduced to a mere sentence? It felt as though the world had shifted beneath my feet, leaving me grasping for something solid, something real. I had sacrificed so much for him, believing we were building a future together. But now, that future was nothing more than an illusion, a mirage that had vanished with a single breath. I sank onto the bench, the cool wood pressing against my back like an uncomfortable truth. Around me, children played, their laughter a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. It was as if the universe was mocking my despair, flaunting its indifference to my suffering. Yet, amidst the cacophony, I found myself searching for clarity, for understanding. How had it come to this? I closed my eyes, letting the memories wash over me like a relentless tide. Our first meeting, a chance encounter in a bustling city cafe, where his smile had lit up the room like the first rays of dawn. The late-night study sessions, where we had whispered dreams across the table, fueled by caffeine and youthful ambition. The quiet moments, where words had been unnecessary, where our hearts had spoken in a language only we understood. But somewhere along the way, The language had changed. Subtly, insidiously. I had noticed the calls that went unanswered, the texts that were replied to with curt responses, the way his eyes would flicker with a shadow whenever her name was mentioned, like a moth drawn to a forbidden flame. I had ignored it, brushed it aside, convincing myself it was nothing more than a figment of my imagination. After all, hadn't he chosen me? Hadn't we chosen each other? Yet, the heart is a fickle thing, easily swayed by the echoes of the past. She was his first love, the one who had left but never truly departed from his heart. I had always been aware of her presence, a ghost haunting the corners of our relationship. But I had believed, foolishly perhaps, that I was enough, that the love we had cultivated over the years was stronger, more resilient. I opened my eyes, the world coming back into focus. The park was bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, and in that moment, I realized something profound. His choice, his betrayal, did not define me. My worth was not measured by his acceptance or rejection. I had given him 5 years, yes, but those years were filled with experiences that had shaped me, molded me into the person I was today. As I rose from the bench, a gentle breeze caressed my face, as if assuring me that it was time to move forward, time to reclaim my narrative, my story. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in the mist of the unknown, but it was mine to walk, to explore, to conquer. With each step, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders, replaced by a sense of liberation. There would be more heartache, of that I was certain, but there would also be joy, discovery, and perhaps love. Real love, not the shadow of something lost. I turned one last time to look at the park, whispering a silent farewell to the ghosts of my past. With the setting sun as my witness, I stepped into the future, ready to embrace whatever awaited me beyond the horizon. The night air was thick with the scent of jasmine as I walked aimlessly through the park. The moon cast a delicate glow over the path, but even the serene beauty of the night couldn't quell the storm raging inside my heart. 5 years of my life had been woven into a tapestry of moments spent with him, every thread a memory that now felt frayed and fragile. I paused by the fountain, watching the water cascade in, silver ribbons. It was here where we first met, an accidental encounter that felt orchestrated by fate. Back then, his smile was enough to light up my world, and I never doubted the sincerity of his affections. But now, that world felt shattered, the pieces scattered across a landscape I no longer recognized. The message I'd received that morning still echoed in my mind, each word a fresh wound. He had proposed to her, his ex, the one he claimed he'd moved on from. I thought our love had weathered storms stronger than the ghosts of past relationships, but evidently I was wrong. I sat on the edge of the fountain, the cold stone seeping through my clothes, grounding me in the reality I was desperate to escape. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a soft vibration that pulled me back from the brink of despair. It was a message from Yuki, my closest friend and confidant. She had been my rock through many of life's turbulent seas, and I knew she would be here soon, ready to listen, to help me piece together what remained of my heart. As I waited, memories flooded back, our late-night conversations, the laughter that echoed through my apartment, the quiet moments when words weren't necessary. I recalled the promises we made under starlit skies, promises I believed were unbreakable. Yet, here I was, alone and adrift. Yuki arrived with her characteristic energy, her presence a beacon of warmth in the cool night. She sat beside me, her eyes reflecting genuine concern. "I came as soon as I could," she said softly, her voice a comforting balm. I could feel the weight of her gaze, and it was all I could do to keep my composure. "He's gone back to her," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. Yuki's expression shifted from concern to anger, her loyalty fiercely protective. "That idiot doesn't know what he's lost," she declared, her words firm and reassuring. "You've given him everything, and if he can't see that, then he doesn't deserve you." Her words were a lifeline, and I clung to them, grateful for her unwavering support. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the gentle splash of the fountain. Yuki's presence was a reminder that I wasn't truly alone, even if it felt that way. As the night deepened, Yuki began to speak of new possibilities, of paths yet to be explored. "You've been living in his shadow for too long," she said. "Maybe this is your chance to find your own light." Her words resonated within me, sparking a flicker of hope. I had spent so much time defining myself through someone else's dreams that I had forgotten my own. Perhaps this was the universe's way of nudging me toward a new beginning, one where I could rediscover who I was, independent of the love that had once consumed me. With Yuki's encouragement, I resolved to take the first steps toward healing. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew there would be moments of doubt and pain. But beneath the sorrow, there was a faint glimmer of strength, one that whispered of resilience and renewal. As we left the park, the first hints of dawn began to paint the sky in hues of pink and gold. The sight filled me with a quiet determination. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I was ready to walk it, to embrace whatever lay beyond the horizon. With each step, I felt the weight of the past lift, and for the first time since the news broke my heart, I dared to hope that the future might hold something beautiful, something just for me. The rain drummed softly against the window of my small apartment, each drop a rhythmic reminder of the tumultuous emotions swirling within me. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the delicate silver bracelet that had become a symbol of the years I had poured into my relationship with Ren. Each charm represented a memory, a moment where I believed we were building a future together. Yet, just yesterday, my world had shattered with a single sentence. "I've proposed to her." Those words echoed in my mind, relentless and unforgiving, as if daring me to wake from a dream turned nightmare. His ex, Akiko, had always been a distant shadow, a name that occasionally crept into our conversations, but never once did I imagine she would become the focal point of his devotion. The betrayal felt like a sharp knife twisting deeper with each heartbeat. For 5 years, I had sacrificed so much, my dreams, my time, my heart, all for a love that now seemed illusory. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my voice felt trapped beneath a mountain of disbelief and sorrow. In the dim light of the room, I noticed the photograph of us tacked onto the wall, our smiles now hauntingly hollow. I couldn't bear to look at it any longer. With a heavy heart, I tore it down, the tearing sound a small relief amidst the chaos in my mind. I needed clarity, a sense of direction, though the path ahead felt obscured by a dense fog of confusion and pain. I decided to seek refuge in the one place that had always soothed my soul, the small cafe on the corner of Sakura Street. The bell chimed gently as I pushed open the door, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloping me like a warm embrace. Luckily, the cafe was quiet, the usual chatter replaced by the comforting sound of a gentle jazz tune playing softly in the background. Taking a seat by the window, I watched the world outside blur into a watercolor of gray and green. My mind drifted back to the moments when Ren and I would sit here for hours, dreaming aloud about a future that now felt irretrievably lost. "Hey, Yuki." A voice pulled me from my thoughts. It was Hana, the barista who had become a friend over the years. Her eyes, filled with genuine concern, met mine. "Are you okay? You look troubled." I offered a strained smile, feeling the weight of my emotions pressing down on me. "It's been a rough couple of days." Hana sat down across from me, her presence a comforting anchor in my storm-tossed mind. "Do you want to talk about it?" Her kindness nudged something loose within me, and before I knew it, the words spilled out. Of Ren, of Akiko, of the tangled mess my heart had become. Hana listened intently, nodding occasionally, her expression one of quiet understanding. "Yuki," she said softly once I finished, her voice steady and reassuring. "It's okay to feel lost. But remember, this isn't the end of your story. It's just a chapter, and you have the power to write the next one." Her words resonated with a truth I had been too blinded by hurt to see. I had been so consumed by what I had lost that I hadn't considered what I might gain. Perhaps this was an opportunity to rediscover myself, to chase the dreams I had placed on hold for Ren. Just as I began to contemplate this new perspective, the The door to the cafe swung open with a gust of wind, and a familiar figure entered, shaking droplets of rain from their coat. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized Ren, his presence an unexpected intrusion. He hesitated when our eyes met, a flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, crossing his features. Part of me wanted to confront him, to unleash the torrent of questions that had been festering within me. But another part, a quieter, wiser part, urged patience, urged me to wait and see what he had to say. Ren approached tentatively, his steps slow and deliberate. When he finally stood before me, I could see the conflict mirrored in his eyes. "Yuki," he began, his voice barely a whisper over the rain. I didn't mean for things to turn out this way." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without my emotions rising to the surface. Hana, sensing the tension, discreetly slipped away, leaving us alone in the quiet corner of the cafe. Ren took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for a confession. "When Akiko came back into my life, it stirred up feelings I thought I'd buried, but that doesn't excuse how I've treated you. You deserve so much more than this." His words were like a balm and salt to an open wound, offering an apology yet deepening the hurt. I wanted to ask why, to demand explanations that might ease the ache in my heart. But instead, I found myself asking, "Are you happy, Ren?" The question hung between us, heavy and poignant. His answer, I realized, mattered less than my own need to understand where I stood in this new reality. Ren hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I think I can be, but I never wanted to hurt you, Yuki. You are important to me." I absorbed his words, allowing them to settle into the cracks of my fractured heart. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. As Ren turned to leave, I knew that while this chapter was ending, a new one awaited, a journey of healing, of self-discovery, and of new beginnings. And though I couldn't see the path ahead clearly, I felt a glimmer of resolve, a promise to myself that I would emerge stronger, no matter what lay ahead. The evening was cloaked in a soft, melancholic twilight, casting long shadows across the park where I sat, the chill of the bench seeping through my coat. It was here, beneath the whispering boughs of the ancient cherry trees, that I had often found solace. Tonight, however, the world felt different, as if the universe itself was poised on the precipice of some monumental change. Yuki, my best friend since childhood, sat beside me, her presence a comforting anchor amidst the storm raging within. We had grown up together, our paths intertwined like the branches overhead. Yet tonight, even her warmth couldn't thaw the ice lodged in my heart. "I can't believe he did that," Yuki murmured, her voice a soft echo of my own disbelief. Her eyes, usually so bright and mischievous, were serious, mirroring the gravity of the situation. "I sacrificed so much," I whispered, more to myself than to her. 5 years, Yuki. 5 years of love, patience, and dreams. And for what? The wind picked up, stirring the leaves into a soft, rustling symphony. It was as if the world itself was trying to offer me comfort, but I was beyond consolation. The image of him, my Riku, kneeling before her, his ex, and offering her the ring I had once imagined might find its way to my finger, was burned into my mind like an unwanted brand. "Maybe it was meant to be," Yuki suggested gently. "Maybe there's a lesson in this, a path you wouldn't have taken otherwise." Her words were like a balm, soothing yet unable to heal the raw wound inside me. I knew she meant well, but the bitterness was a stubborn thorn lodged deeply in my heart. "Perhaps," I replied, though my voice was devoid of conviction. I wanted to believe in destiny, in the notion that everything happens for a reason, but right now, it felt like a cruel joke. Yuki stood and offered me her hand, pulling me up with a surprising strength. "Let's walk," she said. "Maybe movement will help clear your mind." Together, we strolled beneath the canopy of stars, the park a serene sanctuary in the middle of the city. The path ahead was illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns, casting a warm, golden light that painted everything in shades of nostalgia. As we walked, I found my thoughts drifting back to the beginning, to the day I met Riku. Our eyes had met across the crowded university campus, a chance encounter that had felt like fate. He was charming, his laughter contagious, and his dreams as vast as the starry sky above us. We had built a life together, a tapestry woven from shared moments and whispered secrets. My heart ached with the memory of his smile, the warmth of his embrace. But now, those memories were tainted, overshadowed by the image of him with her. The thought was a constant thorn, pricking at my consciousness, refusing to be ignored. "Do you remember when we used to come here as kids?" Yuki asked, breaking the silence. Her eyes sparkled with the memory, and despite my heavy heart, I couldn't help but smile. We'd spend hours imagining adventures. I recalled, the memory a brief reprieve from my turmoil. Pirates, princesses, and magical quests. Exactly, Yuki grinned. And we never gave up, no matter how many times we stumbled. Her words resonated, a gentle reminder of the resilience buried within me. It was true. Life had thrown its share of challenges my way, but I had always found a way through. Perhaps this was just another trial, another chapter in my ongoing story. As we neared the park's exit, I paused, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. The world was vast and filled with possibilities, a truth I had momentarily forgotten. The path before me was uncertain, but it was mine to walk, and I would navigate it at my own pace. "Thank you, Yuki," I said, my voice steadier. "Now, for everything." She squeezed my hand, her smile a beacon of unwavering support. "Always." With renewed determination, I stepped forward, leaving the park and the shadows of the past behind. The road ahead was uncharted, but I was ready to face whatever lay in wait, armed with the knowledge that I was not alone. The room was cloaked in an eerie silence, the kind that echoes between the beats of a heavy heart. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the message that would forever alter the course of my life. My phone's screen glowed with words that seemed to burn into my soul, their impact far heavier than the device itself. She said yes. 3 simple words, yet they carried the weight of my world collapsing. The bed beneath me felt like quicksand, pulling me deeper into a chasm of despair with each breath. 5 years. 5 years of laughter and tears, of dreams shared and secrets whispered in the dark. 5 years of believing I was the one he saw a future with. I was wrong. As I looked around the room, every object seemed to mock me. The framed photos of our trips, the gifts exchanged on anniversaries, the mismatched socks he once teased me about, all were remnants of a life I thought we were building together. Now, they were relics of a past that had been rewritten without my consent. I knew I couldn't stay here, trapped in a space haunted by what was no longer mine. The city outside was alive, its heartbeat a rhythmic hum that pulsed through the apartment's thin walls. I grabbed my coat, the familiar fabric wrapping around me like a fragile shield against the emotional storm raging within. The streets were awash with summer's golden light, the air thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and distant barbecues. People milled around, their laughter and chatter weaving a tapestry of normalcy that felt so distant from my shattered reality. I walked without direction, letting the city's currents guide me like a leaf on a river. Eventually, I found myself at the park, a place where our shared history was etched into every tree and bench. It was here, beneath the sprawling branches of a cherry blossom tree, that he had first held my hand, promising me the world. I sank onto the grass, the cool earth, grounding me as I fought to hold back the tears threatening to spill over. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves above, whispering secrets only the wind could carry. It was then that I noticed a young couple nearby, their hands entwined, eyes locked in a silent conversation brimming with unspoken promises. The sight pierced through my defenses, and I turned away, blinking rapidly to dispel the blurriness of unshed tears. "Hey, are you okay?" A soft voice interrupted my spiraling thoughts. I turned to find a young woman standing beside me, concern etched on her features. Her name was Aiko, a familiar face from the morning spent jogging in the park, though we had never exchanged more than polite smiles before. Today, her presence felt like an unexpected lifeline. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm not sure I know how to be okay right now." Aiko sat down beside me, her presence warm and steady. "Sometimes, it's okay not to be okay," she said gently. "Life has a way of throwing us curveballs. What's important is how we choose to face them." Her words resonated with an unfamiliar clarity, and for the first time since reading that message, I found a sliver of strength within me, a tiny ember struggling against the suffocating darkness. I looked at Aiko, gratitude mingling with the raw ache in my chest. "Thank you," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I think I needed to hear that." She smiled, her eyes kind and understanding. "Anytime, and if you ever need to talk or just sit in silence, I'm here." As we sat together, the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. It was a reminder that even the darkest nights were followed by a new dawn. I didn't know what the future held, but perhaps, with time and a little help from unexpected friends, I could find a way to heal and rediscover the person I lost somewhere along the way. As the park lights flickered on, casting a soft glow over the path, I felt the first tendrils of hope unfurling within me. It was fragile, like the first bloom of spring, but it was there, offering the promise of something new. And for now, that was enough.